All right, welcome back, everybody. We're here today with another edition of Syntax for English 370. Last time, covering syntax, we did some basics, and then we also looked at some distinctions between different methodologies. We were looking at the difference between attestation and elicitation, and we talked about those differences, particularly with regards to syntax. Today, we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to change subtopics, still going to be talking about syntax. Today the plan is to talk about words. We talked last time with the basic section about the fact that words are our units when we're doing syntax. So we want to talk about more about what those are and how we categorize them a little bit. And then, yeah, that's actually basically what we're going to be talking about today in this lecture. This will be part 2 of 3 with regards to syntax. There'll be a third section that is more about tree drawing, kind of like how we did with morphology, where we saw unfriendliness had hierarchical structure. That's where we're going with part 3. But for today, talking about categories, talking about putting words into different categories. And we're going to call these morphosyntactic categories because they're involved with both the morphology and with the syntactic functionality of a word. Morphosyntactic categories. Now, roughly, we can see these things as very similar to parts of speech, right? And we know what these things are. These are our nouns and verbs and adjectives, adverbs, etc. But we want to look a bit more specifically about how we're defining these categories. And we'll find that it's a little bit more complicated than we might first expect. We covered this very briefly in the morphology section. We'll go into more detail now. So here, these basic definitions, right? These basic, not definitions, these basic sets. Think to yourself, how do you define a noun? How do you define a verb, etc.? That's what we'll be covering. And we'll find that there's 3 ways, roughly, that we can try to define a category of a morphosyntactic category of a word. We're going to be looking, hold on, there it is. We're going to be looking at using semantics, meaning itself. We're going to be looking at distribution, where it fits within a sentence as actually part of its defining characteristics. And then we're going to look at morphology, looking at the internal structure and what affixes can actually attach to a word as a way of possibly defining or categorizing different words into different morphosyntactic categories. And what we're going to end up saying, spoiler alert for the end of this lecture, is that we're going to need sort of all 3 of these to work together to give us a good idea of what morphosyntactic category a word's in. None of the 3 of these are perfect, but together we get a fairly good sense. So the first of the 3 that we're looking at is meaning, and this is kind of what you've been classically taught probably in English classes as far as how parts of speech are defined. I asked you to think a little bit about nouns and verbs. These are the classic ones, right? Like, so a noun is a person, place, or thing. Idea gets thrown in there sometimes. But we see that this kind of works, right? It works for the dog that I can see out my window right now, and it works for houses, and it works for things like that, cities, Grand Rapids, etc. But it doesn't work for all things that we might want to categorize as a noun, right? Awesomeness. Is that a person, a place, a thing? It's not really even a thing, right? That's nice in general, but even that generality of thing doesn't quite cover this. Similarly with verbs, verbs are actions, right? It's what you do, that classic, Schoolhouse Rock version of parts of speech. But this, too, gets tricky if we rely solely on meaning. If a verb is an action, and we have a sentence like, the Alfredo was smelly, see our wonderful picture over here, is that something that it's doing that was? No, it's kind of just like a state of being, right? So this works, but only to an extent. There's these outliers, these things that don't quite fit. And we'll find that to be the case with every morphosyntactic category. Actually, more so the case with other categories like prepositions or complementizers. what meaning do we assign to that category? And it's more functional, it's more whatever else. So this is not going to get us exactly where we want to be. That's the sort of take-home point there. Meaning. So we'll try another one. We'll try our second possible way of putting things into morphosyntactic categories, which is distribution. And we find that this is essentially the realization that we find different morphosyntactic categories, different words, in different places in a sentence, and in different relationships with other words. So we're now defining these morphosyntactic categories based on who the word's friends are, who it's around, what frame or what type of position within a sentence it occurs in. And we'll see that these morphosyntactic categories, they share a distribution. They can all roughly appear, we'll find holes in this as well, but they can all roughly appear in the same spot within a sentence. This makes them intersubstitutable. You can substitute one for another. So for instance, if you had I saw the, and then a blank, we can put more or less any noun in there and it will make some sense. There's semantic limitations on this, but in general we can say I saw the dog, I saw the bottle, I saw the house, I saw the city, I saw the continent, right? We can put in a bunch of different things in that. There are all these different nouns and they're all interchangeable, intersubstitutable. There's a blank in my class, right? You just stick a noun in there and it probably is going to make some sense. You know, monster or whatever in your class. That's the idea that these things are interchangeable, and things that aren't in that category are going to be less interchangeable, right? So if we want nouns here, it works with different nouns. We've been over that. This shouldn't necessarily work with something like adjectives. I saw the great, right? I saw the wooden. These aren't really good, right? You need, that shows that these things like great and wooden are actually not in that morphosyntactic category. They don't share that distribution with the rest of the nouny things. It's because they're going to share a distribution with the rest of the adjective things. This is one way we can get at. We can try and plug different words into these different frames, into these different distributions to see if they play along like the other ones. Right, here's some more examples of that working. You can put there's a blank in my class, there's a dog in my class, works perfectly well. This means it's a noun. But there's a sloppy in my class. Not really. That's great, right? That's what we just talked about. Sweet. We've done two of them. We looked at the semantics, and that gets us partway there. We looked at the distributions, that gets us a little bit more. And now we're going to look at the morphology, defining a part of speech or assigning a part of speech to a word based on how it interacts with other elements of morphology. And to see how this takes place, we're going to remember our affixes. And remember that our affixes attach to certain parts of speech, right? So we said things like ing is a suffix, and it takes verbs, right? It takes verbs. It's a suffix that only goes on verbs. So if you have the verb call to call somebody, you can add ing to make calling onto that. I'm calling them. But you can't really add this ing suffix onto, say, an adjective, like tall. This giraffe is tall. But you can't add the ing suffix to make it talling. Doesn't work that way. Ness, similarly, we'll find that, again, each adjective has its own morphosyntactic category that it has to attach to. Ness is the opposite. It does like to attach to adjectives. Things like tall go to tallness, but you can't really add it to verbs, like call goes to callness. So if we're testing what part of speech a word is, we can take some of these affixes in which we know what part of speech they attach to and try to attach them. Right. So if we're wondering if Google can be used as a verb, this new word, and we're like, well, can it be used as a verb? We can try to add ing to it and say Googling. I'm Googling that right now. And we're like, okay, great, that works. This leads us to believe that Google can at least be used as a verb. But if we try to say like Googleness, right? I don't even know how to use that in a sentence. I saw the Googleness of the something, right? Of the desk. That doesn't work. So we're going to say that this new word that we came up with, Google, to Google, can be used as a verb, like Googling, but cannot be used as an adjective, Googleness. This gets us at this structural element, right, which it's gonna come in very in handy when we talk about syntax more in the next lecture. That we use these trees to represent them based on the way they combine with another. That un combines with happy to make unhappy another adjective, and then we bring ness in there. This idea that affixes need to attach to certain parts of speech, they have that as their input, what it attaches to, and then derivational affixes, well, all types of affixes actually, have some sort of part of speech that they create. That's the output. So, for instance, un takes an adjective, and it outputs an adjective. Its input is an adjective, and its output is an adjective. You can see that here, right? Here, it takes this noun. This is not a noun. This is an adjective. Typos in the lecture. I'll change these for the slides, which I post. Happy's an adjective here. So this affix takes this adjective, cover that up, and creates another adjective. This affix over here, ness, also takes an adjective and creates a noun. That one's not a typo, at least. Thank goodness. And I'm covering up some words. We're going to get better at this thing as we go. That's okay. I'll post the slides, so anything that my big head is covering up, you can just look at later on in the slides if you really need to. But I talk about most things on the slide anyhow. Cool. So these are our three ways that we look at placing things in a morphosyntactic category. Recapping, we have the meaning. They kind of share the semantics, the person, place, or thingishness of nouns, and the actions, things you do for verbs. That's one way. But we also add to that the distribution, the syntactic, morphosyntactic distribution of the word, and the structure, the morphological category here, what morphemes can attach to it structurally. And between these three, we tend to get a good idea of what part of speech a word is. This is from the technical side of things. We want to have bring to mind as well the fact that we're actually pretty good at this as speakers of English. We don't struggle too much with intuiting what part of speech something is. But we want to pin this down, what we've been doing for the past few minutes here is pinning down a more technical explanation for how we actually know the things that we know. Because it's not enough just to intuit the things like the morphosyntactic category. We want some sorts of tests to be able to get at these things more directly than just intuition. And here we've got them, these three ways. Okay, moving on. We can see we're going to talk a little bit about selectional features. Here we bring up the idea that it's a little bit like the distribution that we looked at with the parts of speech or the morphosyntactic categories. But here what we're saying is that words kind of select for other words, right? So if you say, who did you meet at the party? And you answer a linguist, that's perfectly fine. But if you say, who do you meet at the party? Who did you meet at the party? And you just say a, there's a sense that that's incomplete. That determiner needs something else. It selects for something else. And what it selects for here, we can see, is a noun like linguist. Right? A noun like linguist is what this is selecting for. Different parts of speech have these ideas where they need something else to combine with. Kind of bank that for now in the back of your mind, and that'll circle back around as a general concept. If you haven't seen the Linguist Llama before, here's your introduction. Lots of linguistics memes take place for some reason with a Linguistics Llama. Throwback to phonetics there. Okay, we've talked now through one full lecture and one partial lecture, and we haven't even talked about what the heck we're doing here with syntax. That's important. We want, pardon that, I'll mute there real quick. We want to know what the goal is. And now that we have some of our baselines set, some of these morphosyntactic categories and these selectional features, we're going to see that what we're after is a system of rules which allows us to do two things. It allows us to produce or generate all the grammatical sentences in a language. Take in English for an example, although this is broader than just English. So we have these rules that will produce all the grammatical sentences and disallow all the ungrammatical sentences. So we want a system of rules which can generate for us these word strings that we'll call sentences, all the grammatical ones that we deem thumbs up, and doesn't give us any ungrammatical ones. That's important. We're going to come up with a system of rules. So we're going to start like this. Remember our hierarchical structure that we looked at with regards to morphology, where we said there's a hierarchy here. There's a hierarchy. And we can build these pieces together, adding them together as we move up our syntactic tree. The same thing is going to be true in syntax, right? So we have a simple sentence like this, I like pizza, and we're going to divide it into these morphosyntactic categories like we just saw here, nouns and verbs, and we're going to say that they're all hierarchically under a sentence. Here's a sentence, and it's got three parts, a noun, I, a verb, like, and a noun, pizza. All making up this sentence. And we could have a flat structure that looks like this. A flat structure, right? Where everything, this noun and verb and noun are all sort of on the same level. Take your bets right now, pause your video real quick. You think this is going to stand? Are we going to like this flat structure? No. We're going to find that there's more to it than just this flat structure. This would be far too boring, and there wouldn't be another entire lecture after this one about tree drawing and structure if it was as simple as this. But we'll kind of walk through why this is the case, right? At its most basic level, what we'll see is that this misses generalizations of morphosyntactic categories. Right? This misses a generalization of intersubstitutability, which is this. There's a sense in which in sentences, like 1 and 2 here, in the sentence, I like pizza, and in the sentence, I ran, these bolded elements, in some sense, are themselves intersubstitutable. Like pizza, as a unit, I like pizza, and I ran. Where ran is substituting not just for like, not just verb for verb here, but kind of the general verby thing that's happening here. What am I doing? Liking pizza. What am I doing? Running. Ran, right? So there's a sense in which those two things are intersubstitutable. If those two things are intersubstitutable, what might we want to say about them? They're members of the same category. They're both verb phrases. So instead of having this flat structure, like I like pizza, all flat in a line, we'll say that there's a verb phrase here, which can be either like pizza, or it can be ran, right? Where we would just get rid of this second noun right here, and we would just write ran right here. I ran, I like pizza. And this shows us this VP level of structure in which like pizza and ran are intersubstitutable. That's what we get from this hierarchical structure. That's some of our proof. And we'll be seeing that over and over. Are these things sort of intersubstitutable? And now we've got to talk about some terminology, a little bit of housekeeping here, in that we've got this phrasal thing. We've got categories, so a few different categories. We've got these phrases that are made up of heads. Head are these lexical items for the moment. We'll define that a little bit more later. But we can see that this head here projects its category. So above this verb is a verb phrase. It's kind of how these phrases are going to work. At each phrasal level here, each XP, each here in this case a VP, we're going to have an X underneath it. In this case, the V, because it's under a VP. If we had a noun phrase, we would expect a noun underneath it, etc. And here we get to another crucial part, another crucial term, which is constituents. And constituents are the nodes, the chunks of language which we draw into our trees. So this encompasses both individual words, like this noun, I, and verb, like, and noun, pizza. Those are all constituents. Those are all pieces. But so too are phrases, constituents. So this verb phrase here is also a constituent. It's also a piece. We can think of this as nodes on the tree. If we had these little dots here, so this N has a dot, it's a node. The VP is a little node, and each of these are nodes. Those are our constituents, the pieces that we can work with. And we need a way, just like we had a way to test the morphosyntactic rather, category of different words. We need a way to see if some element, some chunk of language material is a constituent or not. Is it gonna be a node on a tree or not? And so for this, we introduce a new battery, a new set of tests. These are called constituency tests, and we're gonna go over 5 of them. Substitution, proform substitution, coordination, topicalization and movement, and question and answer. And these are tests that you can perform on some strings of words to see if they count as a constituent or not, because not all strings of words are constituents, just some of them are, right? For instance, I like together doesn't form a constituent. There's no node that is connecting I directly to like, in the same way that there is a node, the VP, that connects like and pizza together. So this string, I like, is not a constituent, and like pizza is a constituent. They share just a single node here. So we're going to go over some tests. Fair warning about constituency tests. Warning number 1, I don't really like constituency tests very much. This is me being honest. They're not great, they're fuzzy, they don't give you concrete results like a test should. What good is a test if it doesn't even give you concrete answers? But they're important nonetheless because they tell us something about language, even if they're a little bit of a hassle, even if they're blurry and they don't give us the best concrete evidence for constituency, which they're specifically designed to do. We still want to know about them and be able to perform them because of what they say about these constituents, these chunks of language. So we're going to go over each of these. And you're going to have to be able to run these tests on some constituents. But we're not going to dwell forever on these constituents, these constituency tests. The idea of constituency itself is much more important than the constituency tests. That's why we're going over this, to get at that key idea of what a chunk or a constituent is. Okay, I've warned you. Let's do it. 5 constituency tests coming right up. Number 1, we've already seen this. Substitution is our first test. Right? When we were talking about things being intersubstitutable, secretly, without knowing it, you were performing the substitution test, which is the idea that elements of the same morphosyntactic category can be switched for another. So if you want to know if something's a constituent, try switching it with something else that you already know is a constituent. If you want to know if something's a constituent, I'll say that again because it's important, replace it, substitute it with something that you already know is a constituent. And if it works, then your thing is probably a constituent. I say probably because, hey, constituency tests. So let's take a look at some examples here. If we wanted to know about the dog, in the sentence, the dog ate the apple, is the dog a constituent by itself? We try to substitute something else that we know is a constituent. What are some things that we know are constituents? Single words. Single words are always constituents. So it's a really good go-to for substitution tests. If you can substitute a single word in for it, you're in pretty good shape. So can we substitute, is there something we can substitute in for the dog in the sentence, the dog ate the apple, that makes sense? And the answer obviously is yes, you can see it on the screen. We can substitute something like John in. John ate the apple. The dog ate the apple, John ate the apple. This suggests that the dog and John are the same type of thing. You might think that's a noun phrase and that'd be totally okay. But we're going to jump ahead some spoilers and we're going to call this a DP. The D is for the determiner. This determiner like a or the. A DP. They're both the same type of things. They're nouny type of things. Determiner phrases here. The dog and John, both determiner phrases. Or if we look at something like this, the dog ate the apple, and we're curious if ate the apple is a constituent, we say, well, is there something we can substitute in there that makes this work? Preferably one word. Sure, barked. The dog barked. That means ate the apple. That whole phrase is a constituent, and it's a constituent of the same type as the thing we substituted in, which was a verb. These are both verb phrases. That's how substitution works. We did one out of 5. Killing it. Proform substitution. This one's easy because it's pretty similar to substitution itself, except instead of substituting any old thing for the element that we're testing, instead you substitute essentially a proform, a pronoun or something that is similar for a verb phrase. So if we're testing nouny type things, we want to substitute in a pronoun. So again, if we're testing the dog in a sentence like the dog ate the sweet potato, we can substitute in a pronoun for that easily enough. He ate the sweet potato. Test success. When we have successes like that, successes are judged by grammaticality. Is our new sentence, he ate the sweet potato, grammatical? Yes, that means it passes the test. Or like the apple disappeared, we can change it for it disappeared. So for noun phrases, or determiner phrases, that's pretty clear. When it comes to verb phrase type things, if we suspect, for instance, that it's a verb phrase, we have to substitute something else, like a do so, or a did so, or a does so, or whatever. So for ate the macaron, Megan ate the macaron, we can substitute did so for that entire phrase, ate the macaron. So we have the sentence, Megan ate the macaron, the dog did so too. And so the question we ask ourselves here is, what does did so stand for? What's it replacing? And it's replacing ate the macaron. That's a good sign that ate the macaron is in fact a constituent, that substitution still. Here's more examples. A warning here is that you have to know, you have to guess, you have to have a suspicion of what type of constituent you're dealing with before you try these proform substitutions. So if we have a nouny thing, like the dog ate the macaron, and we try to use this did so, does so, do so ate the macaron, doesn't work. Doesn't work. Do so doesn't work for the DPs. And similarly, if we had Megan ate the macaron and we're trying to test this verbal thing and we try to do a pronoun in there, the dog it too, doesn't work. So try both of them and you'll be even better off. Just keep testing. That's proform substitution. So we have substitution itself and then we have a subtype of that, which is proform substitution. Next, on to number 3, coordination. Coordination is where you add something in with and. You coordinate what the thing that you're testing, and then you say and something else. And only constituents can be done with and. So the following tests, we're trying to test for the dog. So we can say the dog and Megan, which we already know Megan is a constituent. So the dog and Megan can be put together. They're both constituents, and they're both constituents of the same type. Ate the macaron. The dog and the cat ate the macaron. Again, this tests these different parts of speech. Let's do some more examples. The dog ate the macaron and the fish. Remember, you can pause this at any time, like stand up, stretch, freshen, drink some coffee, whatever you need to do. The dog ate the macaron and the fish. What does this tell us? Well, it tells us that the macaron is a DP constituent because we coordinated it with the fish. The dog ate the apple and barked. This shows us that what are we coordinating here with and barked? Well, we're coordinating this whole phrase, ate the apple. It's not the dog ate the apple and barked, right? It's the dog ate the apple and barked. So there's a little nuance there. You have to be careful with this test of what you're coordinating together. If you wanted to test for the apple, you'd say something like the dog ate the apple and the mushroom. The apple and the mushroom. Here we're testing ate the apple and barked. Let's try another one here. The dog ate and cat ignored the macaron. Right? So what are we coordinating? Well, we're coordinating the dog ate, as in the dog ate the macaron, and we're trying to coordinate it with cat ignored. It just doesn't really work, right? We know semantically what this last sentence is trying to say. The dog ate the macaron and the cat ignored the macaron. But the test just doesn't work. And why doesn't the test work? Because our resulting sentence is ungrammatical. That's important. We've had mostly successful ones so far, so it's good to see some examples of ungrammatical failed tests. Two more to go over. Test number 4 is movement, and the basic concept of this test is, can you move things around? Can you move the chunk that you're questioning around in the sentence? If you can, it's probably a constituent, and if you can't, it's not a constituent. If you can move it together and it stays as a chunk, wherever you put it in the sentence, probably a constituent. The ones we're going to test are moving a constituent to the front of the sentence. So if we wanted to test totally underrated to see if that bolded part, totally underrated, is a chunk together, a constituent, we try to move it to the front. Can we move this somewhere else, like to the front? Yeah, you can. You can say something like, totally underrated is what I think driving is. Totally underrated. I enjoy driving. It's totally underrated is what driving is. This frame is called preposing. So you do, the thing you're talking about is what, or is who, and then you do the rest of the sentence. I'll give you a more schematic outlay of this. So preposing, typically in preposing, we try to move the piece in question to the front of the sentence. So our base sentence here is Tyreek is who went to the movie. No, sorry. Our base sentence here, the from bit, is Tyreek went to the movie. So we have this sentence, Tyreek went to the movie, and we want to see if Tyreek itself is a constituent. Okay, it's a single word, so there's a pretty good chance, but we're still going to do this test. So we're going to move it to the front. Okay, cool, it's already there. And then we add this is what or is who. So from Tyreek went to the movie, our resulting sentence is Tyreek is who, and then we continue the rest of the sentence, went to the movie. Tyreek is who went to the movie. So that's method number 1 of moving. Move it to the front, move the element that you're testing to the front, and add is who or is what. Another similar one here is called clefting. And in clefting, what we do is we move the chunk to the beginning of the sentence, and then we say, it was the chunk that X. So if we had the sentence, I jumped into the ocean, and we are testing into the ocean, we move it to the front, and we add the, it was X that. So it was into the ocean that I jumped. Right? It was into the ocean that I jumped. Is that a grammatical sentence? Yes. It was into the ocean that I jumped. Okay, I'll stop repeating that sentence randomly till you get sick of it. Our last test, almost done. Test number 5, question and answer. The basic concept here is you're playing like a little game, right? So what you're doing is you're trying to play this game in which you ask a question and the answer to that question is the constituent in general, and just that constituent. Is it possible to come up with a question, the answer to which is the possible constituent in question that you're trying to figure out? This will be more clear with examples. They always are. So if you have a sentence like this, my grandma likes to eat chili on Fridays. And what we want to know is eat chili on Fridays a constituent? With a question and answer, what we want to say is there a question we can ask such that eat chili on Fridays is the answer. Think about it. Is there a question you can ask to get that as a sort of fragment answer? There is, right? You can ask this. Your grandma likes to what? And it's always good if you put a little attitude on it, a little stress. Your grandma likes to what? And the answer? Eat chili on Fridays. Pretend like you didn't hear the person, right? Your grandma likes to what? And the answer is eat chili on Fridays. That shows that this is kind of an independent thing. It can stand on its own and it's a constituent. Let's do another one. Let's do another question and answer. This is a fun game. This is one of my favorite tests. Coordination one sucks. This one's great. Here's our sentence. My grandma likes to eat chili on Fridays. My grandma likes to eat chili on Fridays, and the segment we want to test for is my grandma likes to. Is there a question we can ask now to get the bolded part, my grandma likes to, as an answer? Take a second and think about this. Is there some question we can ask? Let's try a couple. Let's just try. So we could ask this, what, eat chili on Fridays? Okay, that doesn't make sense. And the answer, my grandma likes to? Weird. Super weird. When doing constituency tests, if you end up with something bizarre, it's a failure. If it's weird, it's out. We're very judgmental in this. I mean, we're running tests, so we're allowed to be judgmental. We could try different questions, though. Maybe we just asked the wrong question. It's possible. So we could ask, who eat chili on Fridays? The answer to which we would ideally have be, my grandma likes to. Right? And what we want to see is how much more awkward these question and answer pairs are. Who eat chili on Friday? My grandma likes to. You're like, you guys aren't speaking English anymore, right? Then something like this. Your grandma likes to what? And then a person answers, eat chili on Fridays. That's actually a normal conversation. These ones, not so much. Not so much at all. Cool. So what we're gonna recap real quick, and then I'll end this video with what does it mean sort of when a test fails. It can mean a couple different things. It can mean that you tested for the wrong sort of category, right? So if we test the dog ate the bone, right? And we try to put like it or he in there, the bone. I mean, it could just tell us that that's not a DP because we tried to substitute that pronoun in for it. Maybe we try something else, like maybe it's a verb. We could try to substitute in did so for it. The did so ate the bone. Okay, it's not a verbal thing either. So probably if we do enough of these tests, we'll find eventually that it's not a constituent at all. That dog ate just simply isn't a constituent. Just isn't. There's no real test. There's nothing you can substitute for dog ate that's going to work. Right? I mean, you could substitute like cat ate, but then note that you're really just substituting dog for cat and testing dog. Right? When you substitute things, you want to be sure that the thing you substitute in is itself a constituent. That's why we like to use single words, if we can. Sweet. The other thing you want to be careful of, and this is one of the reasons I don't really like constituency tests, is that there's so many things you have to be careful of and ways you can do it incorrectly, etc. Is that we want to avoid substitutions that wildly change the meaning of the sentence, right? So if we had, I put a picture of pizza on your desk, and we wanted to test whether I put a picture of pizza on was a constituent, theoretically we could substitute something in like clean, and we'd get clean your desk, and clean your desk is grammatical. Like that. It doesn't actually help us as much as we think. That being said, you may ask yourself, Ross, what do you want me to take home from all this stuff? All of these constituency tests that we've gone over. I'm glad you asked, class, non-existent class in front of me. Here's what I want you to take away from these 5 constituency tests. What I want you to be able to do is take an underlined or bolded string of words like dog ate, and I want you to be able to run at least 2 constituency tests on it. I don't need you to come up with the correct answer of is it a constituent or not. What I need you to be able to do is run the tests. And if you run the tests here, if I give you this sentence, I put a picture of pizza on your desk, and you give me, clean your desk, and you say, Ross, I did a substitution. I took one word, and I substituted it in for this whole thing, and it worked. I will give you 100% credit for that. You correctly performed here the constituency test. You correctly performed substitution, and thus you get full credit. Now, turns out your conclusions based on this that were, yeah, that's a constituent because it passed the substitution test, were actually wrong. This actually isn't a constituent. I don't care about that. You performed the test correctly, you're all right in my books. So what you need to be able to do on your homework, on tests, is given a bolded string of words, you need to be able to perform 2 different constituency tests on it. And you need to form the tests correctly. Your conclusions about whether it's a constituent or not, I don't care. We're going to get at that a different way when we get to tree drawings. For you, you need to be able to run the tests. And note, I'm only going to ask you to ever run 2 constituency tests on any given string. So say, for instance, if you're like me, and you really don't like the coordination test, do you have to know how to do it if I only ever ask you to perform 2 constituency tests? Nope. So you can just you can have favorites, and that's totally fine. You can do a pro-form substitution test. I happen to like that one. And you can do the question and answer one. I like that one too. But you have to be able to at least perform a couple. That's what you need to know. That's the take-home. Cool. Whew, we actually covered a lot of material there. This is probably longer than I should have gone in this video, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But to recap, we looked at 2 main things, right? We looked at these morphosyntactic categories, and we had 3 different ways to talk about morphosyntactic categories. We looked at them based on meaning, we looked at them based on distribution, and we looked at them based on morphology, what affixes could attach to them. That was one segment. The next segment, we introduced this notion of constituency, of a meaningful, locked together chunk of language that we're going to eventually use for our syntactic trees. And we came up with 5 different tests, 5 tests, in order to test if an element, a string of language, was actually a constituent or not. That's what we did here. That's what the take-homes are. So if things aren't making sense, the nice part about having these on YouTube videos is, well, back it up, right? Hit that rewind button. Listen to me blabber on again about dogs eating macarons. And if it still doesn't make sense after your second listen, send me an email, of course. Always be in contact with me via email or elsewise, and we'll clarify things. I can always add like a little 5-minute, hey, I should have said this about constituents, and I didn't. And so if you ask me a question, it will actually really benefit the class. I can add these little blurbs, these little videos really nicely. Okay, I'm going to cut it off there. This video is too long. One more syntactic lecture to go. I'll post that a little bit later in the week. And I'll catch you then. Until then, enjoy your constituents, and I hope your grandma likes to eat chili on Fridays.